Hello Internet, my name is Andrew Wetter and welcome to another episode of Film Editorials. It's been a really long time and I'm sorry about that, but trust Star Wars to bring me out of the woodwork. That's right, the topic of today's video is Solo, a Star Wars story, the prequel origin story of everyone's favorite smuggler, Han Solo. As I've just alluded to, Solo is a prequel to the original trilogy. It is set between episodes 3 and episodes 4 in the Star Wars timeline, and it tells sort of the origin story of Han Solo, how he met Chewbacca, how he got the Millennium Falcon, how he met Lando, and all of those things are covered in this film. Lawrence Kasdan, who was one of the writers for Empire Strikes Back and The Force Awakens, is back for this movie along with his son Jonathan, so they definitely are familiar with the character, having written some of his most iconic lines. Ron Howard is the director, and he is of course familiar with big budget blockbusters like the Da Vinci Code movies, and he's also no stranger to the Lucasfilm family by having done Willow back in the day, and having been in George Lucas projects as an actor back in the day, like American Graffiti. Before we get too deep into my analysis of this film, I just wanted to say that I need to see this movie again. Not just because it's a Star Wars movie and I have a compulsive need to see Star Wars movies more than once, though that probably is one factor, but the reason I need to see this movie more than once is because I had certain expectations of this movie, and this movie really didn't meet those expectations, and so the movie itself, or my experience with the movie, and then my experience making this video, is a lot about expectation management. What I mean by that is you can go in expecting a certain amount of things, and if those expectations aren't met, it doesn't really matter if what the final product is good or not, because you're too busy reacting to the fact that it's so different from what you imagined. And that's what I'm feeling right now, and what I felt right when I left the theater. It's like if you're thirsty and you pick up a glass and you're expecting it to be milk, but it's actually orange juice. That orange juice is going to taste really weird, even if it's the best orange juice in the world. One of the things I was expecting from Solo was that it was going to be kind of a combination of The Sting and Gone in 60 Seconds and Casino Royale, and it's really not any of those things. It has a couple elements, there's the crime aspect, and there's some gambling, and there's just general distrust with everybody, but it's not really like any one of those movies at all, let alone the three of them in combination. And so when I was expecting those things and they never came, it wasn't really disappointing. It was just, well, I don't know how to make this movie fit into a box in my brain. Another example of having to manage your expectations is Alden Ehrenreich, who plays Han Solo. He's not Harrison Ford, and that's not his fault. He actually does a really good job if you can sit back and say, okay, this kid is not Harrison Ford. How is his Han Solo characterization? And it's quite good. He says the things right, he does a good job with it, he acts very well, but if you're expecting to see, Harrison Ford 45 years ago, it's not going to work. I was thinking maybe it was something to do with his voice and how it sounds different from Harrison Ford's, but I think it's just, I'm so used to the Harrison Ford version of the character, how could I not have expectations about this character when it's a different actor? And that's not fair to the actor who's doing the portrayal. So I have to go see this movie with a clean slate of expectations about his performance and just watch it for what it is. Furthermore, it turns out I had expectations that I didn't even realize I had about the character of Han Solo, and I guess I expected him to always be proactive and always going in and changing the situation in his favor, and for most of the movie, he's reactive, not proactive. It's, there's some enemy ahead of him. He has to figure out how to get away from it. He has to figure out how to get away from that. He has to figure out how to get away from this. He has to figure out how to get out of this situation. And he doesn't start to take control of what he's doing until towards the end of the film. And in the 3 days it's been since I've seen the movie, I've been thinking a lot about how, well, is this the problem I have with the movie? Is this a negative thing that Han Solo's always reactionary? And then it occurred to me that since at the end of the movie he does become much more proactive, that's actually the story arc they're trying to tell. He started off as reactionary, and now he's much more proactive. He goes from to proactivity. That's a really good story. That's a really interesting story, but apparently I had expected Han Solo, since the original trilogy and episode 7, he's very proactive, very, out in front of these issues, and occasionally he has to, react to things not going well, but it usually feels like the ball is in his court and he just drops it for a second, kind of a feel. In the beginning of Solo, it's not like that at all. He has very little authority over how his own story is going. So I think if I go see the movie again, with that framework in mind of narrative structure and this robust character, then I'll actually be able to enjoy it more than I did the first time when it was not living up to my really unconscious expectations. Unconscious here meaning that I didn't think about it, not that I was asleep when those things came to me. In addition to this movie surprising me by not living up to the expectations I had invented in my own brain, this movie also has some genuine surprises in it. I can't go into spoilers because I like to keep the reviews spoiler-free, but in the comment section below, let's talk about those surprises. There's one in particular that was really, honestly shocking to me. And I think it's a big deal, and it's going to be a surprise to most people who see this movie. In fact, I would be hard-pressed to put any odds in favor of people guessing the surprise here. The rest of the cast is really good too, with obvious standouts being Donald Glover as Lando, who is just absolutely spot on, and my new favorite character, L337, a droid played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is equal parts hilarious and awesome and heartfelt, and just, she was my favorite character basically anytime she was on screen. Obviously, being a Star Wars movie, you expect the action to look really cool and just generally be exciting, and you won't be disappointed on that front. This movie's also really funny, which I enjoyed a lot. In fact, I could probably stand it to be a little bit funnier. Like I've said, the story is pretty good overall, and I think the themes are there, but not each scene gels with the other, or they just feel disjointed when you switch from one to the next. And I've already started thinking about how I would have done things differently, which is a similar reaction I had to episodes 1, 2, and 3 with scenes I didn't like. Another thing I didn't like about this movie was that I saw it in IMAX 3D, and normally I'm a huge fan of IMAX, and 3D doesn't bother me one way or the other, but since the cinematography in this movie is very dark and subdued and murky, like you're not supposed to trust anybody, and that's kind of the vibe you're going for, everybody's living in the shadows. The IMAX presumably helped with that, brightening things and giving you a bigger image, so that's still fine. But the 3D darkened things significantly, and there were a couple of times where I was actually confused about what was happening because it was so dark I had a hard time seeing stuff. And that's not the reaction I should be having leaving a movie theater. So again, I need to go see it again, someplace brighter. Also, the 3D effects themselves basically added nothing to my enjoyment of the story. I didn't feel much more immersed in the story than I would if I had seen it on a flat screen. So at the end of the day, I guess I'm going to have to give Solo, a Star Wars story, 4 stars out of 5. The cast is absolutely top shelf. The action is pure Star Wars, which is exactly what you want. The movie is laugh out loud funny at some parts, which I really enjoyed. But on the other hand, some of the story elements don't seem to fit together quite right. I know it's not his fault, but it still doesn't feel quite right to see somebody else playing Han Solo. And I would suggest you not see this movie in 3D because it's going to be way too dark for you to figure out what's going on screen. See, I can give a Star Wars movie something besides 5 out of 5 stars. Okay, I think that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share it with all of your friends, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat. As always, check out my friends over at The Good News Review, tgnreview.com. It's sort of an online newspaper for substantive, positive news stories that often get overlooked by the 24-hour news cycle. And I will see you guys next time, which will hopefully be in less than 6 months this time. I'm gonna try and do better. That's actually a good idea. Leave a comment down below if you're okay with me doing reviews for movies that have been out for a while. Say, for example, if the next video I did was for Avengers Infinity War. Is it too late now? Do you guys care? Do you just like hearing my voice? Let me know down below in the comments, and we'll see where we go from there. Thanks for your patience. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.